All right, we're going to do inside the bus, passenger-related items, and the driver's compartment. I'm gonna start by walking up to our doors, and we're making sure that the glass is clear, no cracks, no breaks. We're gonna make sure that the seals are good. We're gonna make sure the doors open and close from the outside. Then we're gonna come in here, we're gonna check our stepwell. We're making sure that is a skid-free surface. Make sure all the screws are present and in place. Making sure that there's no damage and no trip hazards. And over here, we're gonna check our stepwell lights, making sure they're clear, no cracks, no breaks. They'll be checked during the light test. Then we're gonna check our handrail, making sure that it is securely mounted to the bus with the screws in place and that there are no sharp edges. Then we're gonna come over here and we're gonna check the fire extinguisher, make sure it's securely mounted in the proper brackets. We're making sure that it is an ABC extinguisher, it's got its green tag, it is dated, and making sure that the little needle's in the green. Then we're gonna check our warning triangles, making sure it's securely mounted and that there are 3 of them in there. Then we're gonna come over here, we're gonna check our body fluid cleanup kit and our first aid kit, making sure they are securely mounted and fully stocked. We're gonna come over here and we're looking for our seatbelt cutter, making sure it is present and in arm's reach. And then we're gonna show that in our cubby we've got our insurance verification and our spare fuses. You're gonna let the examiner know that you're gonna do the safety start. Buckled in, turn the key on. Make sure that the bus is in neutral and the parking brake is set. Let the gauges finish. And alright, once the bus is started, we'll go and finish our passenger-related items. We're starting by checking our seats. We're making sure that they are all securely mounted. We're checking for any vandalism, any damage. And as we head to the back, we're also going to check our emergency windows, making sure that they are properly labeled and legible. We're making sure that they open and close smoothly and make sure the alarms are going off. Checking our emergency hatches. What all you do is you just let the examiner know that you would turn the red knob to the exit and you would firmly push up to open it. Once we've made it to the back, we're checking our rear windows, making sure they're clear, no cracks, no breaks, no illegal stickers or obstructions. Then we're checking our emergency door, making sure it is labeled and legible. We're making sure that the alarm sounds and making sure that it opens and closes smoothly. Then we're gonna turn around, we're gonna check the aisle. We're making sure that it is on a skid-free surface. We're making sure that all the trim is present and tack down, all the screws are in place. Light test, so we're gonna switch on our headlights, we're gonna turn on our hazards. We're looking in the crossovers, we can see that our headlights are on. We're checking to make sure our brights are on, and they are. We're gonna turn on our master switch, turn on our ambers. In the front we can see that our hazards are on, we can see that our ambers are on. So we're gonna go to the back of the bus, peek out the back door, and from here we can see that the hazards are on, we can see that the ambers are on. All right. And we'll go back to the front. Now we're going to open the door, step outside. Here we can see our stepwell lights are on. We see that our crossing gate has opened properly. We see that our ring lights are on, we can see our hazard turn signals on. Now we see that our reds are on, our clearance lights are on. Walk around, we see that our stop signs have come on. We see our clearance lights on the side, we see that our side turn signal hazard lights come on. We see that our other stop sign lights come on. In the back we see our tag lights on, we see our tail lights. We see our turn signal hazards on, we see that our red loading lights are on. And then our brake lights are on. Come back this way, we see that our clearances are on. And we see our other turn signal is on. Alright, from there we come back, we go ahead and shut the door. Turn off our master switch. Turn off our hazards. And that completes our light test. We're going to check our seat, making sure it's securely mounted to the bus, making sure it's in good condition. We're going to sit down. We're going to check our seatbelt. We're making sure it's not damaged, no cut or frays, making sure that it buckles smoothly. Once we are seated, now we are going to check our windshield, making sure it's clear, no cracks, no breaks, no illegal stickers or obstructions. We're checking our windshield wipers, making sure they are secured to the bus. They're in good condition with no weather rot or cracks or breaks. We're gonna check their function, make sure they're working, making sure that the fluid's working. All good. All right, then we're gonna check our mirrors. All of our mirrors. We're checking all our flat mirrors, our crossover mirrors, and our passenger mirror. We're making sure that all the mirror faces are clean, clear, no cracks, no breaks, and we're checking all the visibility and make sure that they're set up properly. Then we're gonna look down, we're gonna check our horn. We're going to check it by honking it twice. Then we're checking our steering wheel. We're making sure that has no more than 2 inches of play. Then we're gonna move over to our accessory switches. We're gonna let them know what they all are. Just starting with all our climate controls. These are all air conditioners, these are heaters, these are more heaters. Then over here we've got our service door. We've got all our interior lights. We've got our cancel arm button, we've got our master switch, we've got our amber switch, we've got our noise suppression, we've got our mirror heaters, we got our strobe, we got our panel switch, and we've got our 2 fans. Then we're moving up to our instrument panel. We've got our headlights, we've got our high idle, and we got our dimmer switch over here. We've got our speedometer, which will be checked during the 5 mph check. We've got our RPMs, we'll check that during the air brake hold test. We've got our air pressure, front and the rear. We want to make sure that that's between 120 and 130 psi. We can see our battery gauge, make sure that the voltage stays between 13 and 14. We've got our water coolant, making sure that that stays between 180 and 210. Then we got our oil pressure gauge. We make sure that stays between 25 and 75 psi. Then we're good, yes. Now we're ready to move on to our air brake leak test. We're gonna do our air brake leak test. We're gonna start by turning off the bus. Click off the headlights. All right, turning the key on.
So we have use of our gauges. All right, and we're gonna start
by pressing firmly on the service brakes and releasing our emergency brake. We're gonna hold it for 1 minute and make sure that we don't lose more than 3 psi. All right, we've waited 1 minute. We have not lost more than 3 psi. So now we're gonna start to bleed the air. And we're going to wait for our emergency brakes to activate. Our low air pressure warning came on at 60 psi. And our air brakes should kick in at about 20 to 45 psi, no less than 20 psi though. All right, that was successful. So next, we're going to turn on the bus now. Once the gauges are all good, we're gonna turn on our high idle to help us get up to our next step, which is getting to 80 psi. We'll turn back off the high idle, and we need it to go from 85 psi to 100 psi in 45 seconds or less. Warning went off because it got past the 60 psi mark. Then it's about at 80, so we'll get our timer ready, turn off the high idle, and for 45 seconds. And perfect. It got to 100 in about 40 seconds. That is great. Then we're gonna turn back on our high idle. Now we're listening for the governor to kick it out. Should kick out at about 120 psi, no higher than 130 psi. There we go. All good. Next thing we're gonna check is we're gonna do our air brake hold test. So we're going to kick it into drive. And we're going to press firmly on the gas, give it some RPMs, and the bus did not move to the left or to the right, and it held, so it's good. Now we're gonna do our 5